Okay, so
Okay, I'll let you lead the interview. I thought I didn't mean to take over. You just got me carried away. You see, I still love this cause.
I think that was great, and I'm actually a little bit sorry to have to pull you back to more,
Please.
Less maybe interesting subjects, yet subjects that have to be discussed.
Okay.
Like, one of them we'll get back to. That is how you think the rest of us could use techniques like the video and so on, which seem to be the future. People like pictures, not as much books today.
Yeah.
Can't read probably. And but another thing is this question of the Jewish problem, because
let's go one at a time, okay, Knud?
No, we'll leave the thing about the videos because that's more of a practical thing that you have to make courses and more people have to.
Well, let's talk about that in a minute, because I would like to speak about two aspects of that. There are really millions of us who understand the basic principles of our cause. There are millions of us who have an idea of what the truth is about preserving our heritage, preserving our freedom and our independence, which are all vital human qualities and vital human rights. But a lot of us don't really know how to go about promoting these ideas. We don't. We live in a media, and we can go to the Jewish problem. We live in a media. People know this. Hollywood is as kosher as a Jewish wedding. It's as kosher as a bar mitzvah. and so we get. There's a very fine book called The Mediators, written a few years ago, talking about the fact that the people who are mediating our society, interpreting our society, explaining our society, defining our society, are made of a small percentage of people, and this percentage of people is not the majority. The way that people live here in Denmark, all right, and the way that the media thrust you get, whether the Hollywood, most of the movies you see are from Hollywood, California, which they might as well be from Israel, and and most of your media is from the international press. It's filtered through actually Jewish sources, and I hate to say it, but I would call them Jewish extremists. Not all Jews are, I think, anti-Western, but certainly fundamentally a great deal of the Jewish leadership is, and so we get this. So the way we see the world often, even the way we express ourselves, comes from a Jewish interpretation of the world, right?
Always.
So we have to be careful, and we have to learn how to express ourselves in an authentic way that doesn't buy into the way that they try to channel us. I'll give you an example. They would define European efforts at self-preservation, which is the most natural, by the way, the most natural and God-given, nature-given impulse there could possibly be. The idea just to preserve yourself. That in fact, they say that's the first law of self-preservation. Every species, every breed, every individual living entity on the earth has this drive to be preserved.
Pretty obvious.
And they make our self-preservation out to be evil, and the way they describe our effort at self-preservation is they call it, quote, racist. Right?
Yeah. And
racism has been described, racism is not described as simply love of your people or love of your heritage. It's certainly not described. When the Tibetan wants his people to survive, and Hollywood stars go to say, save Tibet, they don't describe it as Tibetan racism. When Indians in the Amazon rainforest want to preserve their Indian culture or heritage, they don't describe this as Indian rainforest racists.
No, that's a noble.
Exactly. So racism is defined today, in fact, as someone who tries to oppress others or harm others. And there's not a single person I know in this movement that wants to have non-Europeans as slaves, or to dominate them, or exploit them, or use them. In fact, they simply want to have their own culture and preserve their own culture in their own land. And this is a natural human desire. And yet, you have some people in the movement that will say, yes, I'm racist and I'm proud of it. Well, you're saying to people, yes, I'm just a racist, I'm hateful, I'm, biased, I'm oppressive, I'm, and so we have to understand our language. You know who the racists are? The racists are those, in the true definition of the term, I'm not talking about a different definition you want to make of racism, but the way that society defines it. Racism is truly those who want to destroy other races, who want to have a tiny minority, for instance, that dominate other races and have this societal conflict that comes from the so-called multiculturalism, racialism, which creates conflict, hatred, division.
It gives all these conflicts
Yeah,
and hatred.
so the racism is a small word. Now, the Jewish thing, right?
Exactly. I like when you carry on with these things, but it's so obvious that it's easier to bring out a positive message, like love everybody and give love to the whole world.
Yeah.
The only trouble comes when you have to bring it into the real world, and it always happens like giving it to your closest friends, your family, and then your people. But let's say that the message of preserving the white people, that's the positive side, and we should be allowed to do that, of course. Then you have let's say it's understood as a more negative side when you have to look at the Jewish question. It is a difficult question, and when I listen to radio lectures by you, or you have interviews, there's a little difference between you and some of your colleagues sometimes, which I have understood is in the category they think you're a little bit obsessed with Jews, and they would not like to talk that much about Jews. But how can we get around it if they are everywhere?
Well, okay. Again, we're going to get some fundamental definitions here, and this is, I really believe, Mark Twain said it so well that we have to really be so careful about the definition of words and the words we use. We have to be very precise. I like to even go back to the dictionary when I use a word and check it, especially if it's an important word, like racism, for instance. But even more than that, understand the definition according to the cultural milieu that we live in. And sometimes that's even a little different than dictionary. Sometimes that's ahead of the dictionary. The dictionary later comes in. And people who've made great changes in philosophies and politics and other things, they've understood common definitions, and they've understood the power of words. So let's go to that word positive that you mentioned. You know, it's you said, well, we'd like to talk about positive things, but there's negative things. Well, I don't think it's positive to go to a 3-year-old baby and say, it's good to put your fingers on top of this hot stove.
You would do that.
That's exactly right, but that's not, but that's positive. Well, look, it's okay. It's put your fingers on. It's a positive statement. It's good to put your fingers. Well, I don't think it's being positive when you tell people to do things that are going to hurt them and cause harm and damage. And that's exactly what we've got going on right now. And I think the positive thing is, darling, you don't put your fingers on the stove. You don't play with matches. You see, that's positive, because that way I know that the loved one is going to be safer and learn the right things. Yeah. And if I talk about the Jewish issue, and it's not, again, I have to be very careful about this and precise, because I don't want people to get the wrong impression. There are individual Jews I have great respect for. I could say you have love for in a deep human way. I mean, there's Jews like Gilad Atzmon, who I just have enormous respect for him. And he's a person of Jewish descent, but he has honestly recognized the danger of Jewish extremism. And we hear about Islamic extremism, and we hear about different kinds of extremism, religious extremism, Christian fundamentalist extremism. We hear about white racist extremism and all that kind of thing. And Jewish extremism is, to me, far more dangerous than any of those other aspects. There's danger in lots of extremisms, but the Jewish extremists literally dominate our media today. They dominate government. They've led us into these extremist wars, causing literally more than 1 million casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan, innocent people, based on lies like the weapons of mass destruction. They went against Saddam because Saddam was an enemy of Israel, not because he had true weapons of mass destruction. We went to Afghanistan, part of the same globalist power. They want America to be powerful in some ways today and have military power, simply because America has become a proxy for the power of Israel. Yeah. And these are Jewish extremists that have this power. Israel is a Jewish extremist terrorist state, and they've even committed terrorism against the United States of America. So, it's you can't talk about these issues without talking about the reality of the times. And the truth is that the media is dominated by these people. International finance is dominated by these people. Strauss-Kahn, who was head of the International Monetary Fund, for instance, probably next to maybe the head of the Federal Reserve, which has been Shalom Benarki. Shalom, everybody. Shalom. He literally has probably more financial power in the world than almost anybody else. And I've got quotes from him talking about how he is absolutely loyal to the state of Israel. Now, let me ask you a question. He determines where trillions of dollars go in loans and money to many countries of the world. Like if some country, Sri Lanka or some country wants to get money, they've got to go get approved by, not by anymore, by Strauss-Kahn. His little proclivities got the best of him. And they got to go to Strauss-Kahn. They got to go to these people to get approved.
Which is quite hilarious, actually, the way that Buchanan talked about him. So the New World Order has a bad day.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't keep his fingers to himself.
Exactly. But they've got to... So people you don't think these countries know that how they vote on Israel, like United Nations, or what they say about Israel is going to affect that because it's loyal to... So, but this power is so pernicious, it's so present, and it's not secret organizations necessarily. I mean, there's organizations, CFR, Community for Foreign Relations, there's Bilderbergers and trilaterals and meetings in Davos and World Economic, all that. But let me tell you something. There is a real factor in the world called Zionism and Jewish extremism, and it is a tribalistic and a powerful entity, and it affects our foreign policy. It affects national policy. It affects immigration. It affects culture, and to ignore it and not to deal with it is like never telling your kid, "Don't put your finger on the stove."